All right, hey, welcome NFL football fans. It's that time again, time for another edition of NFL Football Talk. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith Jr. This is an Inside Sports production presented by Humanica Media, and here we are all the way up to Week 9 of the 2017 NFL season. So, hey, what better time? We'll go ahead and give you an NFC preview this week and see where they're going here at midseason. See who's trending up, who's trending down, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything like that. Next week, we're going to do the AFC. This week is going to be all about the NFC. Also, we got all the latest NFL news, injury updates, and such. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. As you know, I do not work alone here. I do enlist the help of only the very, very best. So here he is, the man many of you already follow on Twitter at Chris L Sports, and if not, you should be. He's got some great stuff, some great wisdom, and always entertaining. One of my favorite East Coast intellectuals, a proud graduate of Rutgers University from somewhere in an undisclosed location in Southern California. Here is the main man, Chris Lardieri. Chris, what's happening, man?
Charles, always appreciated. Thank you very much. I guess this week is all about more injuries and trades in the NFL. One of the former being typical ho-hum, the latter kind of a rarity.
Yeah, that's true. It's crazy because we look at, in the preseason, we're already down Ryan Tannehill and Teddy Bridgewater. Bridgewater was injured last season, still hasn't played. And then a few weeks ago it was Aaron Rodgers, then it was Carson Palmer, and now just this week we find out Andrew Luck has been shut down for the season. And today, Thursday, December 2nd, we just found out that Deshaun Watson, the sensational rookie quarterback of Houston. Now, you got to look at Houston, though. After the elation of the World Series and their first win in franchise history for the Astros, then they get this news. He's injured in practice. He's done for the season, ACL. And we got to remember just how well he was doing. 19 TD passes in his first 7 NFL games, 4 games of 4 touchdown passes. And, this is a team that also had already lost their 2 best defensive players in J.J. Watt and Whitney Mercilus. So while it's just fantastic on one side there with the Houston Astros winning, but the Houston Texans just can't seem to catch a break.
No, really a shame because Watson was probably on his way to winning Rookie of the Year. It was a phenomenal game against Seattle last week. People are already calling it the game of the year. Really a great story. And for something this fluky to just happen in practice, not in contact in an actual game, like poor Zach Miller of the Bears. Really, really sad. And I guess the city of Houston used up all their sports juju or karma with the Astros. Really unfortunate because I was looking forward to seeing if the Texans could make a run. I mean, how long have they been waiting for a quarterback in that city?
Yeah, that's true. Well, I would say this, though. Definitely next June, if you go to Vegas like I do and place bets on prospective teams to make it to the Super Bowl, Houston would have to be one because you figure everybody's going to be coming back with a vengeance. Deshaun Watson, and not only that, but J.J. Watt and Whitney Mercilus are going to be there. And I think it has to be mojo because juju, I think, has to do with voodoo, and I think that is saved specifically for the New Orleans Saints, who have had some great juju over the last 5 games.
Yeah, with a capital G, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, Drew Brees kind of has a mediocre game for Drew Brees, and the Saints still win with the ground game and the defense. So, yeah, something's going on down there in the Big Easy, huh?
Yep, definitely. And then, of course, the trade deadline just passed, and we'll get into the NFC report card here in just a moment. But notably, of course, is Jay Ajayi being traded from the Dolphins. He goes, and this is a rich get richer because the Philadelphia Eagles already having a terrific season. They got LeGarrette Blount in the backfield, and now they got a hammer and a hammer with Jay Ajayi in the backfield. And then questionable, too, Kelvin Benjamin getting traded out of Carolina. Now, you're going to leave Cam Newton without Kelvin Benjamin, who's his best receiver, while he's already down their security blanket tight end in Greg Olsen, who's gone for probably another month, I think, into December before he's back with that ankle. So interestingly that they kind of stripped down things there in Carolina.
Yeah, that I don't understand, and neither did Cam Newton. That's something he and I will agree with in one of his press conferences. But some people theorize it may have been due to his weight. I mean, look, I don't care if the guy's a little overweight or what. Like you said, he's his #1 receiver, came back from an injury and really was, as the Panthers have kind of turned their fortunes here the last few weeks, has really been someone that Newton looks towards. And I really don't understand this one at all. Maybe the Mike Shula didn't like him anymore, or Ron Rivera. I can only theorize. Getting back to the Ajayi one, I mean, on both levels, I really don't understand this. I know he was in Adam Gase's dog.
Right. Yeah, we'll have to see what happened there with Ajayi. I don't know, but let's go ahead and I believe we got frozen up here. If Chris can hear me and reconnect, but yeah, Jay Ajayi getting traded out of Miami, and kind of sudden for him. And then we talk about Kelvin Benjamin. Then the other thing is Jimmy Garoppolo, the backup quarterback in New England, getting abruptly traded somewhat to San Francisco. So New England figured they're going to ride the Brady train for as far as it can go. Okay, be just a moment here while we attempt to reconnect here with Mr. Lardieri. Okay. Looks like Chris is we're having some technical difficulties here, a little bit of technical difficulty. Chris is not having a difficulty. It's, all this modern technology. It's fantastic when it's working, but when it's not, it makes you want to pull your hair out. And let me just go ahead and remind everybody that Inside Sports is not just about football. We do touch on all sports, and we do have Gerald Glassford and Anthony Barbarin who cover NBA for us, and they'll be giving you updates now that NBA is in full swing. They'll be giving you updates every week. And I believe we got Chris back on the line here. Chris is now here. Chris, you're back. We lost you there for a minute, man.
Oh, what happened?
I don't know what happened.
No, it just went dead. Dead, and my router's not even blinking. I don't know what happened.
Okay, well,
sorry.
Hey, we were just talking about the trades. Kelvin Benjamin, going out of leaving Carolina, the Ajayi trade, and then I just brought up Jimmy Garoppolo. So it looks like the Patriots have decided to ride the Brady train for as far as it can go, and Jimmy Garoppolo is now in San Francisco to be the quarterback of the future.
I like that trade for the 49ers. I mean, think about it this way. They don't have to go out into free agency and spend a lot of money on Kirk Cousins like a lot of people thought would happen. They don't have to worry about risking a top 2, 3, or 4 pick on a unproven college quarterback. Guys learned under the best of Brady and Belichick, and even if they do sign him to big money, relatively speaking, I don't think it would be as big as what Cousins would want. So good trade. On the New England side, I get it. They got to trade him. He's likely going to walk in free agency, and they'd get no compensation. And Belichick loves those number 2 picks. With where the 49ers are playing this year, that might end up being the equivalent of a late first rounder. It'll be so high. But why trade him now with no backup? I know Brady's doing well, and he seems to be the ageless wonder, eating his avocado ice cream and doing his exercises. But as we know, look at Aaron Rodgers, et cetera. He's one hit away from the season going up in flames. So bit of a risk there, but we're guessing Belichick and crew know what they're doing. Yeah,
that's true. We've learned not to second guess him over the years. In case you're wondering, in Houston, they signed Matt McGloin to be their backup quarterback or potentially starter. Who knows? But anyways, they didn't sign Kaepernick, but I just had to say that. I don't want to open that can of worms because I am so over the whole Kaepernick thing. So let's go into breaking down the NFC here. Let's start in the NFC West. We're out here, of course. So NFC West, Seattle Seahawks, it seems like every time it seems like they're about to falter, but here they are atop the division, tied with the Rams. They've won 4 straight games, and how they're doing it. I mean, it's just the toughness of Russell Wilson, the veteran defense coming up with timely plays. Just Seattle, they know how to get it done.
Yeah, they do, and it's going to look like it'll be an interesting 2-horse race between them and the Rams down the stretch. Big rematch of an earlier season game up at CenturyLink in Seattle. So I think we can count out the Cardinals and the aforementioned 49ers. But what's interesting is, Wilson lit up that Houston secondary last week. Let's see how teams start to defend them. I've got that revolving door at running back. If the ground game's not working and Russell's got to rely on just throwing the ball, that's when teams seem to key on him. But so far, they made a trade for an offensive lineman with Houston this week, so maybe that'll help solidify things. But looks like it'll be an interesting race down here in the second half of the season.
Yeah, definitely. I'm tempted to, it's hard to call. You could call the Rams, you could call the Seahawks, but I would say anything like this when it's tight, I tend to go with the veteran presence. So I still think that the Seahawks are kind of the class of that division, and then the Rams, though, surprising, they're coming up. The Rams look like a playoff team, and who knows what will happen in the second season. But looking at the NFC East, where Jared Goff is there with the Rams quarterbacking, but Carson Wentz, hottest quarterback in the league right now. Philadelphia's won 6 straight. Now they have Jay Ajayi. So one thing out here in the West, we're going to get that big clash. If you're wondering, yes, the stars did align December 10th at the LA Coliseum. It will be those Philadelphia Eagles and Carson Wentz playing the Rams in a game out here. It should be fantastic. Jared Goff against Carson Wentz. But what do you think of the NFC East?
I think, by the way, the Browns will not be watching that game because they probably wish they had either of those quarterbacks. But look, it's Eagles and everyone else. The Redskins kind of could have made their move by beating Dallas last week. It didn't happen. Ezekiel Elliott now finally will be serving his 6 games to split. Fad and Morris are capable backups, but I don't think they put the fear in defenses that Elliott does. And the Giants at this point, I think they're just playing to solidify how high in the first round they'll be picking. That's a team that's on the verge of a mutiny with Janoris Jenkins being suspended now. So I think at this point, it's just a matter of how much of the house will be cleaned.
Yeah, that's true. And when I look at the Redskins, though, and I got to look at the Cowboys. Now, I think that Philadelphia is going to be the class of that division there. I thought they would really take kind of a dip when Sproles got injured early in the season, but they overcame that and are still a solid team, very solid team. In fact, they might make it all the way to the Super Bowl this year. But with Dallas and Washington, a couple of things. When I watched that Dallas-Washington game, and like I said, Dallas is kind of a prove-it-to-me team still. And when I watched that Washington game, that was a Washington team that was decimated by injuries. So some of their offensive linemen had literally gotten there the day before the game to try to fit in. And still, they were in it all the way to the end. So you look at Washington, you say, yeah, they've given up at least 30 points in each of the last 4 games. But I think there's still hope there because Dallas beat them, I think it was 33-19, something along those lines. But they didn't really have a drive over. They only have one drive that was over about 30 or 40 yards. So it's not like their defense is really collapsing in Washington. It's a matter of there's offense, there's kind of fumbles, interceptions, things like that are going wrong. So there's problems on the offensive line. But I still think Washington could right the ship and be okay down the stretch. And Dallas, they still, I'm looking at them, they still haven't really truly beaten anyone yet.
Yeah, and their schedule gets really hard down here in the second half, whereas the Redskins in previous years have kind of struggled at the get-go and rallied. So can't rule the Redskins out yet, but I feel as though the Eagles keep beating up on inferior teams. They're just going to distance themselves and really at the turn take a lead that's insurmountable.
Yeah, there we go. So I think we're both going Eagles at this point and playing well, making all the right moves and all the way up and down the roster, offense, defense. The coaching is good with Doug Peterson. And I like what they're doing in the front office there. So let's jump over into the NFC South. We talked about Carolina and some of the questionable moves they've made. The New Orleans Saints, and they've won 5 straight games. Nobody's really talking too much about them because of the success of Philadelphia, but they got rid of Adrian Peterson after a few games, and they've just kept on rolling since then. But what I liked about this was the efficiency of the last win that the Saints had. And like you said, it wasn't about Drew Brees going deep all the time. It was the controlling the ball, the run game, and it looks like they're finally becoming a complete actual football team here in the latter stages of Brees' career, where they're not trying to protect a 5-point lead by throwing the ball 60 yards down the field. Now they can actually eat up some clock like you're kind of supposed to do in the fourth quarter when you have a lead.
Yeah, and with the two-headed monster, Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, it's really nice. They can spell each other a little bit of a change of pace, and you don't have the logjam with Adrian Peterson in the backfield now, and I think that really helps because, I mean, the there were points where it looks like the Bears were going to get back in that game, but the Saints just kept eating clock up, and anytime Trubisky seemed to get a drive, they'd get a key turnover. So I like the way they're playing it. It's old kind of NFC East, as Peyton learned under Bill Parcells and with the Giants style football, and it wins games.
Yep, definitely. So I think we both agree that in there, and we got to look at let's look at the other side of it. Teams that were a disappointment. Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has lost 4 straight games. This was supposed to be the year that they kind of jumped up. They were going to reach that next level. Deshaun Jackson has kind of been, a bust out there. The wheels are coming off in Tampa Bay. What would be the reason for that?
Oh, very simple. It's the Hard Knocks jinx. I mean, nothing more, nothing less. Any team that seems to be on that show underachieves, I guess. And Jameis Winston can't hold on to the football for whatever reason. I want to say he's got 8 fumbles already, and we saw a little bit of that in the Hard Knocks shows where he kind of forces the ball and throws interceptions, but now he's just not holding on to the ball. The defense, which everyone thought was their strong suit, has really been getting lit up, and the Panthers beat them down there in their own stadium last week, so it doesn't look good. And if this does continue, I mean, we've got to probably put Dirk Cutter on the obligatory hot seat, right? Yeah,
most definitely. And we didn't talk about the Atlanta Falcons, who were in the Super Bowl last year, because, what the heck are they doing in Atlanta? We mentioned Steve Sarkisian last week as far as the offensive coordinator, and Matt Ryan doesn't look comfortable yet. So that's really kind of iffy there in ATL.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, I think people really underestimated the value that Kyle Shanahan had to that offense, and why they're not getting the ball to Julio Jones and Devontae Freeman more often, I don't know. I guess we just attribute that to the curse of Sarkisian. I mean, look what he did to Alabama in the national championship game, right? That's a trend.
That's true. I'll drink to that. Okay, and let's go to the NFC North. Yeah, sorry, that was bad. I couldn't resist. Okay. NFC North, where, hey, this is surprising. I don't know if anyone knew this out there. Chris, did you know this? Did you know Minnesota Vikings, with I don't know exactly who playing quarterback, they've won 4 games in a row? Were you aware of this?
I do. It's a great Case Keenum, and say what you will about him during his Rams tenure. Nice guy. He was very nice to my son at training camp and gave him his towel. And I can tell you, seeing him in person, he's not much taller than me. So to say he's 6 foot is probably stretching it a little, no pun intended. But, I think it's a great story. Look, even with Teddy Bridgewater healthy, it doesn't look like Keenum's going to give up control of that job. And he's doing just enough to win. And frankly, he's playing better than Sam Bradford did last year. And with that defense and the fact that even though they lost Cook with a big injury, that 2-headed monster at running back seems to be controlling the ball, and they're doing just enough to win in a very winnable division.
Yeah, it's true. Especially with Aaron Rodgers down for the count probably this year. We'll see what Hundley brings to the table at QB for the Packers. But, the Detroit Lions, they started off okay, and suddenly everyone was kind of starting a love affair with them. The Lions have lost 3 games in a row. And we know that Chicago is rebuilding. I do think Mitch Trubisky, though, I think he might offer Chicago some hope. I've seen some good things about him.
He tries to make plays. He moves. He's got a good arm. I mean, at this point, he's still learning. He forces the ball a little, but I agree with you. He looks very athletic, doesn't look completely lost out there. So it's good to get him some reps now in a year where there are really low expectations.
Yeah, definitely. But I think, hey, Minnesota, it may be their division to lose right here at this point, because Detroit is trending down. Like I said, Chicago, the rookie QB, we don't know what he's going to do. And Green Bay losing Aaron Rodgers. So Minnesota sneaking in, I think, may go ahead and take this division this year. Who could have seen it coming?
Yeah, and, they're going to go to the Super Bowl, right? Oh, wait, no one's ever played in their home stadium.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Super Bowl would be a bit of a stretch. But, yeah, so there you go. That's the NFC report card. And we'll see how it all plays out this week as they enter the games of Week 9. And then, as I said, next week, AFC, we'll talk about them. We'll see what's happening. So before we get into the pick segment of the show and also the Gambler's Delight and our fantasy football segment, Mr. Lardieri, you always have some good wisdom to share with the fans. What you got for us today?
Sure. I'm going to kind of change course a little bit here. You and I talked about this off air, how much we enjoyed the baseball playoffs and the World Series, especially here in LA. I mean, the Dodgers completely captivated this area to the point where, You know, the house I've been living in with my family for many years, by far, we had the lowest amount of trick-or-treaters. We did see numerous people watching the game in their driveway with the fire pits going. Never seen anything like that. Now, that said, this team had Dodger fever. Unfortunately for the Dodger fans, they lost. But let's see if this momentum can carry over to the LA Rams. I think people are going to wake up here in the next few days and realize, hey, football team here. Are they going to get behind them? Are they not? The Chargers, as we discussed, have been an afterthought. But, you know, look, with the NBA and the NHL in the beginning of very long seasons, this is ripe time for the Rams to kind of capture that fan base and the momentum that the Dodgers gave this season. So let's see what happens.
Yep, there we go. And then I just remember being a kid growing up here in Southern Cal, and it was all about, it was the Dodgers and the Rams. And then you have the Lakers, you know, but that was in the 70s. The Lakers, Magic hadn't arrived, so you just kind of had Kareem and a bunch of other guys. But it was all about the Rams and the Dodgers. So, yeah, we'll see what's happening here. So let's go ahead and get into the pick segment this week for Week 9. And what we do is we take 5 of the more intriguing matchups, kind of give you our take on those, and we've done pretty well this season. Overall for the season, I'm sitting at 30-10 on the year. I was 3-2 last week. Chris was also 3-2 last week. He's sitting at 23-17 on the year. And here it is, Mr. Lardieri, to break down our first matchup, which is a big NFC South tilt.
Yeah, the Atlanta Falcons, they're actually, as of last check, giving a point. They head into Charlotte to play the Panthers. Key NFC South battle. I feel as though the team loses here, and if New Orleans keeps winning, you know, this could have wild card ramifications. The Falcons went into the Meadowlands and basically a monsoon and pulled out a win against a Jets team that's really been scrappy and overachieved this year. But even still, it's exposed some of their problems. I think with Luke Kuechly back with Carolina, this could be an ugly game, even though you would think both teams had high-powered offenses, even going back a year or two ago. But you know, the way the Falcons are slogging around, I like the way the Panthers D's been playing. Cam's been doing just enough to win. I think the differentiator is the Panthers are at home. I'm going to pick Carolina.
Okay, well, with Carolina, I think here's what's going to happen is you've got this week now where I think Cam Newton kind of has to get over the loss of Kelvin Benjamin and truly let the reality of that set in, that he's not going to be there. You know, he's without Greg Olsen. So I think there's going to be a transition week here because Carolina's not exactly pounding the rock either. So this is going to be, I think Atlanta gets a little bit lucky here in catching Carolina in this transitional period. So Carolina may be okay in a couple of games, but I think right now there's still going to be that shock. The offense will be a little bit out of sync. So I'm going to go with Atlanta here to win this tilt and get to 5-3 on the season.
Deep down, I know you still have that fascination with Matty Ice, but even though you like to rip him, you do like to pick him week to week.
Okay, so next game, Cincinnati Bengals, and they've won 3 of their last 4 games. They're sitting at 3-4. On the outer edges of the AFC playoff picture, they're going to be in Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. Jaguars, as we know, they win every other game that they play. They're sitting at 4-3 on the year. The Bengals are a 5.5-point favorite at this point. And, well, you got to go with the momentum. I think the Bengals, they've been playing well as of late. And I'm going to go with the Bengals here in Jacksonville. For one thing, Jacksonville cannot shake this every other win thing. It's what they do. And I don't know if that's reason enough to take a team because they lose every other game and they're due for a loss, but I'm going to go ahead and take the Bengals here. What do you think? I'm
going to differ, and only on a technicality. Jacksonville was off last week, so they technically didn't win or lose. So two fans here, they, even though on paper it'll look like a 2-game winning streak, they're going to win this game. I think the net back pounding the ball. Just keep the ball to Blake Bortles' hands and hope for an Andy Dalton turnover, and then you've got a magic elixir for success.
Yeah, I get that logic. I just think Cincinnati's defense is a little bit too good for them, that's all. So they're going to make Bortles beat them. So we'll see. It could be an entertaining matchup. This is going to kind of be an under-the-radar game, but it could be very entertaining for those who bother to watch it. Okay, Chris, next game for us. The
Baltimore Ravens coming off a big spanking of your Miami Dolphins and proving to be a fool and thinking that Matt Moore was a valid fantasy quarterback last week and the Dolphins could win this game. They go into Tennessee coming off a bye. The Ravens are getting 3.5 points. Marcus Mariota, hopefully his hamstring is healed. Looks like Corey Davis may be coming back off the injury list. ultimately, whether Flacco plays, he got dinged up last Thursday night, or it's Ryan Mallett, who I'm amazed is still in the league. I'm not really too concerned about who quarterbacks for Baltimore. I'm going to pick the Titans. I think that, with there's a great opportunity for this Titans team to make a move and win, which looks to be a very weak AFC South. So I'm going to go with Mariota and company.
All right. Well, from what I understand, Flacco is cleared to play. So on that, with Flacco in the lineup, I'm going to take Baltimore. Either way, Flacco in the lineup, and with Mariota a little bit dinged up. And this is one of those things when you got a solid defense, I think they can make the difference in the game here, because Tennessee has not been exactly lighting up the league. In fact, 12-9 in overtime over Cleveland last week. So I'm taking Baltimore again, going with the veteran presence to be the difference in the game. I'm taking Baltimore to go into Tennessee, and Baltimore gets to 5-4 in that tough AFC North and keeps themselves in the playoff picture.
Yeah, no, Charles, we're not agreeing anymore. I don't know what's going on, if there's some sort of trend or what, but something to keep an eye on.
We'll see. So the next game, this should be highly entertaining here. Kansas City Chiefs at 6-2. They're going to be in Dallas to take on the Cowboys. Cowboys sitting at 4-3. Which mentioned they beat Washington last week 33-19. The big news for the Chiefs, though, is that Tamba Hali, great linebacker for them, he's actually back at practice now. He's not going to play in this game, but it means he may be coming back to join Justin Houston in what can be an overpowering defense there in Kansas City. But as far as this game here, the Chiefs are a 1 point underdog going into Dallas. As I said with the Cowboys too, and all you Cowboys fans out there, we've all got friends who are Cowboys fans. We know that it's our cross to bear. I'm not hating on your squad, but as I said last week before Washington, they haven't proven anything to me yet. They haven't beaten a good team yet. Kansas City is a good football team. I'm taking the Chiefs.
All right, now we finally agree. I really think the last few weeks, not quite sure I know it's gotten into Andy Reid. He gets a little too conservative or does some questionable things. And the fact that Denver was still in that game, despite Trevor Siemian playing an atrocious game, is amazing to me. But I think they need to get back to basics, which kind of differentiated them at the beginning of the year. Get the ball to Tyreek Hill and Kareem Hunt. And they haven't been doing enough of that. They've been letting Alex Smith throw a little too much to other guys. And, they're kind of struggling in the red zone. Get away from that. Get to your bread and butter. And I think the defense can stop whoever it is playing running back for Dallas. And I'll say Chiefs. They get back kind of in their winning ways.
All right, good. We finally agree, and we're back on the same page. And then next game, you know what? It's the Sunday night game. A lot of people are going to be a bit disappointed about it. But, of course, myself being a fan of the Dolphins, and then we've all got friends who are Raider fans too.
Yes, we do.
Break down this.
Yeah, in a matchup and where we wish there was a game 9 or 10 or 11 of the World Series to watch, the Raiders go into Miami. They're actually a 3-point favorite coming off a tough loss in Buffalo last week. Miami, as we mentioned, got smoked by Baltimore on Thursday night. Oakland stayed out east after the Buffalo game, so really I can't use my little geographical travel theory about traveling east. If for no other reason, I think Miami's kind of at this turning point where it seems to be a little bit of disarray in the locker room, with Ajayi being shipped out of town, questions at quarterback. I think the Oakland goes in there and gets a much-needed win. That offense does need to get back on track, and maybe this dumps some opportunity to do it. But got to pick. I'm just going off of sheer emotion and past performance, but I guess someone's got to win this game, right?
Yeah, well, it could end in a tie, but anyways, 3-5 Raiders against the 4-3 Dolphins, and for the same reason why I'm picking Atlanta to go in and beat Carolina, it's going to be the same thing here with the Raiders. Neither one of these two teams are playing great football as of late, but less turmoil to deal with Oakland. I think they're finally going. If there's going to be a get right game, it's got to be this one. So I'm going to go with the Raiders.
It's good to agree at least on 2 out of 5.
Yeah, we finished strong. Okay, everybody. So now there's the picks of the week. Now we get into the segment that a lot of people really love. And, hey, we're pretty good at it when it comes right down to it. And what can you say? This is the Gambler's Delight special. Again, we don't advocate anyone goes to Vegas and tries to win their house payment or anything like that. don't gamble with your kids' college fund. But if you happen to be at a sports book, you got $20 burning a hole in your pocket, you may want to go ahead and look at our picks here. We've done pretty well this season. Chris is 6-2 on the year. I'm sitting at 5-3, but I have gotten my last two correct. So I'm trending up. Chris is always trending up when it comes to the Gambler's Delight. So, Chris, what do you got for us? First Chris's, and then I'll give mine.
Yeah, well, thank you. So I have my pick in, and then the the unfortunate interview to Deshaun Watson. Before that happened today, the Colts were getting 12.5 points, which I thought was a no-brainer. But what the heck, I'll stick with it. That line's moved significantly to 7. The Colts, for being a bad team, I like the way they play. They played hard in Cincinnati last week. With Andrew Luck ruled out now, Jacoby Brissett is clearly going to be the starting quarterback the rest of the year. He doesn't have to worry about his job security. Marlon Mack emerged as a nice running back, and the never-ending Energizer Bunny known as Frank Gore continues to go. So who knows? At the very least, maybe they keep it close. I don't trust Tom Savage, so that's why I'm going to stick with the Colts. Don't know if they'll win, but I could see this being a very low-scoring and sloppy affair, quite possibly. But if I see a team like the Colts getting points on the road to a Texans team that, even has some defensive issues right now, as Russell Wilson exposed last week, what the heck? Take a flyer on them. I'm not very convinced about a lot of these games this week. Some of the lines are odd, a point and a half. But, seeing that the Colts are getting still a fair amount of points, let's say the Colts, and hopefully you can thank me this time next week.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so take the Colts in 7, I think you said it was. So they're going to keep it close. Now, following that, I like the Baltimore and Tennessee because of the point of the season is here. Baltimore 4-4, Tennessee at 4-3. This is when things get a little bit tight. Teams don't really want to force the ball down the field very much. And we look at these two teams here, not exactly lighting the world on fire, but the over-under is 43.5. I'm saying to go ahead and play the under. I think this is going to be a tight kind of a defensive struggle here. I don't see a lot of big plays. I don't see Flacco going deep very often here. Close defense, old school, 3 yards and a cloud of dust football here. So Baltimore and Tennessee play the under, and you can thank both of us next week.
Absolutely. Here's happy and profitable wagering, only in the state of Nevada, of course.
Where it is legal to do so, of course. Okay, so that's our Gambler's Delight. Now the final segment here, which interests a lot of people, and of course, get out those legal pads, the pen and paper, and get ready to take notes, because here comes the man, many years of experience, and hey, he's on the money. You can go ahead and check the previous broadcast here. He knows what he's doing. Fantasy football with Mr. Chris Lardieri. Take it away.
Why, thank you. I don't deserve that after recommending Matt Moore last week, but let's hope we can all get past that. So, as we've been hitting on the last few weeks, a lot of teams on bye. You're probably going to need a tight end. With all the injuries, especially looking now at Deshaun Watson, you're probably going to need a quarterback or at least someone to back up. The popular pickup this week, and I agree with it, is Jimmy Garoppolo with the 49ers. That said, I wouldn't pay too much for him with your fantasy budget, just because remains to be seen how long he gets integrated in the offense and really understands it. But that said, if you've got room for him, stash him on your bench. He might be starting by the end of the year and looking to impress the Coach Shanahan and John Lynch for a long-term contract worth some big money. Keep your eye on him. With the Colts, Jacoby Brissett, I went out there, picked him up as a backup. Case Keenum's another one. These guys are not going to get you huge points, but they're good to plug in. You can win and get into the playoffs with a decent fantasy football quarterback. You look at McCown with the Jets. Look for guys like that. Had A.J. McCarron gotten traded to the Browns, by the way, I think a lot of people would have kept their eye on him, but that's another story for another day about the Browns messing that trade up. But that was a blast from the past that kind of appeared on people's radars momentarily this week. With the Ezekiel Elliott's situation, a lot of people are going to look for McFadden or Morris as running backs. If you can get them, great. If not, really don't stress about it. What I would do, especially if you're a Kareem Hunt owner, we've talked about this early in the season, go get Sharkhandrick West. He's still getting some reps. If Hunt gets hurt or at any point or even misses a game, or maybe just ends up not getting goal line touches, that's a guy to keep your eye on. Finally, you've got to stream your defenses in the bye weeks. One I like this week is the Rams that may be sitting out there on your waivers. They play the Giants, enough said. And this team lately has been playing much better on that side of the ball under Wade Phillips, getting turnovers. I could easily see Eli fumbling or intercepting a few Nothing against my favorite team, the Giants. And then finally, I've got Harrison Butker, kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. He has done a phenomenal job, single-handedly won my game for me this week with a 21-point effort. I don't normally advocate keeping 2 kickers on your team, but if you've got someone like him or a Justin Tucker, an elite kicker like that, don't put those guys out on waivers. They're going to get snapped up. Stash them. Find a second or third tier wide receiver or running back to release. Stream a kicker for a week, and then go pick that guy back up. So that's my advice for the week. Good luck to you. We're almost through these bye weeks here. It'll be less and less teams on bye, and then we head into the playoffs, and everyone will be fully staffed.
All right, there we go. And by the way, I'd like to offer my condolences to everyone who put money on the Houston Texans yesterday after the injury report came out, and then found out, Deshaun Watson gets injured today. That's just the kind of the way it goes, and that's why they call it a gamble, So, hey, remember, everybody, you can follow on Twitter. Follow Mr. Lardieri at Chris L Sports. That's at CHRISL, just the letter L, Sports. Follow me on Twitter at The Inside Sports. Before we sign off, Mr. Lardieri, final words of wisdom for us.
Yeah, getting back to that Browns-Bengals trade, have we figured out what happened? Because I heard one story that the Browns didn't send an email or turn the proper paper in, and both sides had to do it for the trade to be completed, and then they said it wasn't valid. I don't know. I don't want to be cynical, but I know the Browns screwed something up, right, Charles?
Hey, they had to have. They've got a history. It's one of those the usual suspects type of thing. And one thing I wanted to add was they talk about, and we talk about the whole ratings, NFL ratings being down, for the second year in a row, just incrementally down. But I read an article, and one of the executives one of the TV execs talked about it, and he's mentioned something interesting, whereas the NFL has become, because of all the different platforms, it's become a sport that is much more followed than watched. And if that's the case, that could present an interesting problem when you have everybody following your league because of fantasy and everything else and gambling and what have you, but nobody actually watching the games. What exactly do you do at that point?
Yeah, then it becomes CNBC, where do you really watch it to see what your stock does, or do you follow it on a financial app, for instance? And look, I've been guilty of this. I'll be out running around on a Sunday, and I look at my fantasy football app or check the NFL app for scores. I get it. What's interesting, I think, bigger picture is at some point when that TV deal is up again, whether DirecTV keeps Sunday Ticket or not, does the NFL kind of split it up and say, hey, here's the mobile rights? Because so many people, especially youngsters and millennials, are watching on mobile devices, and they don't have satellite TV or old school cable. So keep your eye on that. They've got to get the eyeballs, whether it's a handheld device or a big screen TV.
Yeah, and I think the NFL needs to truly embrace that monster they created in Red Zone, which is basically the lazy man's way to watch football, because you don't really have to see the game that's played in the middle of the field and all the field position. You just get to see when there's about to be a payoff. So they may want to really look at that as something that, if people are just following and not watching games, I think Red Zone would become more and more popular. I'm not crazy about it, but I'm just talking about it from a business standpoint. That may be what they have to do.
Oh, yeah, I love it. My son and I watch it a lot, but I think what they're going to do is start putting banners with commercials at the bottom, because one of the best parts for me of Red Zone is I don't have to see the same commercial over and over and promos for unfunny sitcoms. So they'll figure out a way to slap advertising in that Red Zone platform.
There we go. Okay, and by the way, a couple of those sitcoms are kind of funny every now and then. But anyways, as we said, remember, it's NFL football talk every single week through the season. I'm Charles E. Smith, Jr. For Mr. Chris Lardieri, thank you for watching. We'll see everybody next week.